Hi, I'm Jess, a chronic illness survivor and your host for this topic talk. Excuse my voice at the moment. I'm a little bit under the weather. Let's talk about ways to move through grief. With us right now is Cal, a quirky, kind, and compassionate visionary who loves the sound of alliteration, a stroke survivor, and the founder of our Genius community. Hey, Cal.
Aloha. I feel like I should say like aloha. I haven't got it. I've got nothing to alliterate with that, but if it doesn't alliterate, I obliterate.
He likes it to rhyme as well, people.
Yeah. Get on board.
In 1 to 2 minutes, can you tell us a little bit about one of your experiences of grief and then what process you use to move through it?
Sure. So I guess if I was to give like anyone, you who is watching, my experience of grief ebbs and flows. It's very diverse. It can be insidious. It's not something that I can sort of easily sort of wrap up, but I can at least give like a general overview. When I think about that question, my experience of grief, I've realized, is always triggered by comparison. And I often like use like when we're in the club or whatever, and any of us are engaging, I always refer to the Teddy Roosevelt quote, "Comparison is the thief of joy." And I feel like when I compare the pre-trauma Cal, the pre-brain injury life that I was leading, that is a very that's the thing that brings up the grief and is usually the thing that I battle with the most, because it's a direct comparison to where I'm at. So in terms of like my method of how I navigate that sort of constant ocean of grief, like as the wave comes in of grief, it's kind of matured over time and something that I've consolidated, I guess, as, and it's something that I think that I've learned through my own experience, through sharing our experiences in Genius, that if we follow a pretty strong method or process of navigating grief, which is really navigating towards resilience, we can actually find these opportunities for rebirth. So for me, when I spend time, when one of those waves hits and whatever it might be, I'll reflect on that thing that it is. I'll reflect back and go like, oh, what am I grieving about? Oh, I'm grieving because I'm no longer singing professionally and my aspirations to sing on Broadway are no longer. And then I take that sort of reflection and I move into trying to reframe that and go, well, what is it about that being a singer on Broadway that I wanted to achieve? Like, what is that thing? And I really spend the time like unpacking and reframing, like, okay, so if you wanted to be a singer, it's about using your voice, it's about expressing yourself, it's about being sort of recognized for that ability, or that seeing that you're truly connecting with someone and what you're delivering is moving them in some way. Mm-hmm. So it's about, for me, like reframing upon that reflection, and then that questioning in that reframing are the sort of the building blocks that I've given myself to reinvent myself and how I want to use that reframing in my sort of new ability. So for me, the process of reflecting, reframing, and then reinventing is obviously tied into you knowing that I like alliteration, but it just hangs in there. It just stays in.
Like, don't make excuses.
Yeah, it just it just hangs in. And I can kind of go, like, if I'm sitting there, and this has happened for numerous years, I'm 12 years post my brain trauma and the rebirth and reinvention of myself, and that is not like it's done, but it's certainly something that I can enjoy, because I can, when the wave of comparison comes in or pain comes in, and I reflect on that and I sit in that for a little bit. I don't unpack, I don't live there, but I let it come in, and I'm like, yeah, sure, okay. Then I unpack it and I think about, what is it that I want in that? What's the value? What was the aspiration that I had with it? And then that is the really the stepping stones of how I can choose to reinvent myself within that new framework. That's my method.
Amazing. I would love, if you can, to give us a little bit more of an example about the reinvent and the reframe part, if you can.
Yes. So I guess a little bit more of an example. So, like, in terms of reframing, when I question, like, what was it about, if I use the context of being a singer, what is it about that thing? It was about, my just free ability to express and connect with someone and move them with my voice.
Mm-hmm.
I was not Buble. I really need to put a caveat on this.
Enough.
But no, but I really wasn't. But I enjoyed it, and I was a workhorse and could use my voice in that way. But reframing it was looking at the singer thing and going, okay,
understanding what it was you were actually missing about that thing.
Yeah, and then looking at it another way, and by looking at what that piece of my identity was, I can then reframe and reposition how I want to use it. So, starting out, my journey has been starting out non-verbal with no ability to make sound after I had my ABI, or my stroke, my ABI, because of vocal fold paralysis. And I still have weakness in that area. So I don't have the vocal control or acrobatics to sing, but I can speak really well. In terms of my sound, I can generate a pretty solid sound now, and I practice pretty hard. People are like, yes, I use basically all my conversation as rehearsal, and then I'm like, this is rehabilitation. But yeah, so it's reframing that identity and figuring out what is it about it that I want, and that is then the platform for me to reinvent. So I'm like, okay, so you want that free will to express, you want that that investment of communicating a message and trying to move someone, and then a bit of that response, like that ability to have interaction with someone in that process. So it became very high level, but it gets me out of the mind frame of I'm bound to this identity and bound to the functionality of what this thing is and what it means. And that has helped me reinvent this dude who, right now, like I'm freely, there's no script, like I'm freely expressing, I'm hoping to connect, and I feel like I'm connecting with you, and you're hearing my voice, you're hearing my truth, and that's the reinvention for me.
That's amazing. And anyone who's heard you speak can feel the connection, can feel the impact, but also see the impact. Thank you for sharing that, because it's such an empowering process.
Thank you. Well, I want to, at the end of this week, I'm going to bring it up so that we can all share our own experiences with that and what might work and other ways, which I know is the topic you're going to talk more about. But
exactly. Yeah, on that point, now Cal and I want to hear from you. What is a process that helps you move through grief? Or if you want to use the reflect, reframe, and reinvent down in the comments below, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Or if you want to add another R, that's fine. It has to be an R though. Nicola Browning has an R, so get going.